My life is in complete disarray right now. A week ago, I posted about the catastrophic mistake I made, but I don't know how to link my previous post. Here's a quick summary. I cheated on my wife with my coworker while drunk after a fight with my wife. The woman I cheated with got pregnant. It took a long time to convince her not to ruin my life, and she agreed, provided I supported her and her child financially. She even said she wouldn't mind being with me if I wanted that. In my desperation, I told my brother, who reacted by punching me. My sister-in-law, SIL, defended me and proposed that we fire the coworker and she would pay her for her and her child. Everyone agreed to this plan, including the woman I cheated with. However, yesterday my brother revealed everything to our entire family, which caused an enormous fight. My wife is my father's best friend's daughter, and she is also my best friend. We've been together since childhood, and everyone always wanted us to get married. When my brother exposed the truth, which I had desperately wanted to hide, my wife cried a lot. I begged her for forgiveness, and she forgave me. But then my father-in-law came and took her away. My wife said she wanted to stay with me, but her father didn't listen and took her away. My own father was furious and wanted to hit me, but my mom defended me, saying I was her son and had made a mistake. Now my parents aren't talking to each other. My SIL is angry with my brother for revealing my secret when she was trying to cover for me. Their argument was so intense that she asked my brother for a divorce. My SIL and my mother are defending me, but my father and brother are both angry with me and their spouses, leading to splits in the family. My wife is willing to forgive me and wants to be with me, but says she can't return unless I convince her father, which seems impossible. I feel like the biggest asshole. I know I made a huge mistake, and I wish I could change the past. The guilt is eating me alive because I've torn my family apart. I am the youngest, so my sisters, my mom, and my SIL are very fond of me and are defending me despite my mistake. But my entire family is so angry at each other, fighting to the point of considering divorce. Currently, I'm living with my oldest brother's wife, my SIL, and her parents because she thinks I'm not safe with my brother. She asked for a divorce after the fight. I feel awful about what I did and the fact that my whole family is fighting because of my actions. I desperately want to fix everything. The day everything fell apart started just like any other. I woke up, went through my morning routine, and headed to work. The weight of my secret was always there, pressing down on me, but I managed to push it to the back of my mind. I had to. I didn't have a choice. But when I returned home that evening, the atmosphere was different. There was a tension in the air that I couldn't quite place. I found out later that my brother had told everyone. He gathered the family and exposed my secret, my betrayal. The room erupted into chaos. My wife, who had always been my rock, crumpled into tears. Her sobs tore at my heart, each one a painful reminder of the pain I had caused. I tried to reach out to her, to explain, to beg for forgiveness. But she wouldn't look at me. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice breaking. "I'm so sorry." My father-in-law arrived shortly after, his face a mask of anger and disappointment. He didn't say much. He didn't need to. He simply took my wife by the arm and led her away. She looked back at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of love and hurt, and my heart broke all over again. My father was no less furious. He advanced on me, his fists clenched, ready to strike. My mother intervened, stepping between us, her eyes filled with tears. "He's our son," she pleaded. "He made a mistake, but he's still our son. Look at what he's done." My father shouted, "He's torn this family apart." My mother stood her ground, and for the first time in my life, I saw my parents truly divided. They stopped speaking to each other, a silence that echoed through our home, a constant reminder of my betrayal. My SIL, who had defended me so fiercely, was now at odds with my brother. Their argument was loud and vicious, culminating in her asking for a divorce. The guilt was overwhelming. I had not only ruined my marriage, but had also caused a rift in my brothers. That night, I found myself at my oldest brother's wife's home. She and her parents took me in, believing I wasn't safe with my brother. That irony wasn't lost on me. I had hurt everyone I loved, and yet here I was being protected and defended by those very same people. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind a whirlwind of regret and self-loathing. I had to fix this. I had to find a way to make things right. The next morning, I decided to take action. I called my wife's father, hoping to convince him to let me speak to her. The conversation was brief and cold. He made it clear that he didn't want to hear from me and that he wouldn't let me see his daughter until he believed I had truly changed. Determined, I started by cutting all ties with my coworker. I blocked her number and deleted her from all social media. I knew it was just a small step, but it was necessary. I needed to prove to my wife and her father that I was serious about making amends. I also decided to start therapy. I needed to understand why I had made such a terrible mistake and how to prevent it from happening again. The sessions were difficult, forcing me to confront my actions and their consequences, but I knew it was a necessary part of my journey to redemption. At the same time, I tried to mend the rift in my family. I apologized to my father, explaining that I was working to change. He was still angry, but I could see a glimmer of hope in his eyes. My mother continued to support me, and her unwavering faith gave me strength. I reached out to my SIL, thanking her for defending me, but also apologizing for putting her in such a difficult position. She appreciated the gesture, but her relationship with my brother remained strained. I hoped that in time they could find a way to heal. My wife and I continued to communicate, albeit through phone calls and texts. She was still living with her father, but we talked every day. I could hear the pain in her voice, but also the love. She wanted to believe in me, to believe that I could change. One evening, she called me, her voice trembling. "I miss you," she said. "But I can't come back until my father believes you've changed. You need to prove it to him, not just to me." Her words cut deep, but they also motivated me. I needed to show her father that I was committed to changing, to becoming a better person. I started volunteering at a local charity, dedicating my free time to helping others. It wasn't much, but it was a start. I also continued therapy, delving deeper into my issues and working hard to overcome them. I shared my progress with my wife, hoping she would see how serious I was about making amends. Months passed, and slowly, things began to improve. My father started talking to me again, albeit cautiously. My mother remained my steadfast supporter, always encouraging me to keep going. My brother and Sahil were still struggling, but they hadn't divorced. There was still hope. One day, my wife's father called me. His voice was stern but less cold than before. "I've seen the changes you've made," he said. "I still don't trust you completely, but I'm willing to give you a chance. Come to dinner tomorrow night. We'll talk." My heart raced as I prepared for the dinner. This was my chance to prove myself, to show him that I was serious about changing. I arrived at their home, nervous but determined. The dinner was tense, but I spoke from the heart. I apologized sincerely for my actions, explaining the steps I had taken to change. I told him about my therapy, my volunteer work, and my commitment to becoming a better person. My wife's father listened quietly, his expression unreadable. When I finished, he nodded slowly. "I appreciate your honesty," he said. "You've taken the first steps, but this is just the beginning. It will take time to rebuild trust." I agreed, grateful for the chance to prove myself. My wife smiled at me, her eyes filled with hope. We still had a long way to go, but we were on the right path. As the months went by, I continued to work on myself and my relationships. Therapy helped me understand my actions and how to prevent them in the future. My volunteer work gave me a sense of purpose and fulfillment. My wife and I started attending couples therapy, working together to rebuild our trust and communication. It wasn't easy, but we were both committed to making our marriage work. My family also began to heal. My father and I started to repair our relationship, and he slowly began to forgive me. My brother and Sahil were still working through their issues, but they hadn't given up on each other. 1 year after the incident, my wife and I renewed our vows in a small, intimate ceremony. It was a symbol of our commitment to each other and our promise to move forward together. Looking back, I realized that my mistake had almost destroyed my life and my family, but it also gave me the opportunity to change, to become a better person. I was grateful for the second chance and determined to make the most of it. To anyone going through a similar situation, know that it's possible to rebuild and find a way forward. It takes time, effort, and a lot of love, but it's worth it. My life is far from perfect, but I'm on the path to redemption, and that's enough for me.